Hey everybody, welcome back. We should be now on Tuesday, right? Tuesday. Sorry. When you record these all on the same day, you get confused, and that's also why my hair is the same. And yes, I'm back in my classroom and I'm wearing the same shirt. Anyway, let's take a look at our material for today. And we're now at America's Gilded Age Part 2. So, the corruption of politics. Power of new corporations raised disturbing questions for the average American understanding um, of our, and I'm sorry, this is kind of covering me. So there we go, political freedom. So one thing that was known was political corruption was everywhere. Also, political parties came under the control of powerful political managers with close ties to business interests. Which shall rule, wealth or man? Which shall lead, money or intellect? Who shall fill public stations, educational and patriotic freemen, or the feudal slaves of corporate capital? So the government decides to finally take a stand. And this is coming from basically an act known as the Sherman Antitrust Act. It was passed by Congress to limit trusts and regulate companies such as Standard Oil and Carnegie Steel. It proved almost impossible to enforce for the government. Basically, they're trying to say, you guys are too powerful. We need to make this a more fair capitalist system. But how do you rein in that much control? Workers' freedom in an industrial age. For most workers, economic insecurity remained a basic fact of life. People were not making enough money to live off of, and they were just struggling day to day. Between 1880 and 1900, an average of 35,000 workers perished each year in factory and mine accidents. So all of the, if you work in a factory today, if you work maybe for the audio industry, and how today we have unions, and there's government laws that say, if it's dangerous, there needs to be certain safety precautions. Well, none of that existed. And so that's why so many people were dying every year. Also, class divisions became more and more visible. The working class lived in desperate conditions. So I'm going to show you, I think it's coming up next. A picture here, again, this is our primary source. It's a photograph from the time period. And what you may notice there is that those aren't adults working those machines, those are kids. So back in this time period, kids getting jobs, great, especially in factories like these, because as you can see, they're small enough to get in between the machines, climb on them, their weight's not gonna be too much, and be able to change out some of these rollers as they're going. The problem is these machines are going at a rapid pace, and often kids would be the ones to get hurt, injured, dismembered, what have you. There's a social problem developing as well, and many Americans sensed that something had gone wrong in the nation's social development. Factory workers living in poverty alongside a growing class of millionaires. So right now you may be thinking, Melissa, this sounds very similar to today, and you would be right. That would be a great topic for a political science class, because a lot of these things are being repeated now. So some of these controls that the government had to prevent this very discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots, especially those of us who are working class, they're kind of being shoved to the past as if they're not important anymore. They very much still are. So Charles Darwin, you may have heard of him. He came up with the concept of the theory of evolution, whereby plant and animal species best suited to their environments took the place of those less able to adapt. Social Darwinism used for the concept of survival of the fittest. You might have heard that phrase as well, to justify class distinctions and to explain poverty. Now, when you're looking from a 2024 point of view at science, the evolution, you can go back to the dinosaurs and see how over time they evolved and plant and animal species died out. It's scientifically accepted that that's the case. But now Darwin was also using this to look at human beings. That's where it gets a little bit eyebrow raising, shall we say. He said basically the failure to advance in society was widely thought to indicate a lack of character. Probably see where this is going. Labor in the Republic. So in 1877, the Great Railroad Strike demonstrated that there was an overwhelming labor question. Moreover, there's an overwhelming unhappiness with being of the working labor class. So the Knights of Labor organized all workers to improve social conditions. Think of this as an early union. Labor raised the question of whether meaningful freedom could exist in a situation of extreme economic inequality. That is a great question. Middle-class reformers. So alarmed by the fear of class warfare, a lot of these social and intellectual thinkers offered plans for change. One such person, Henry George, his solution was the single tax, taxing only landowners. Okay. To me, as only being a renter, I'm okay with that. Makes sense to me. But then what if you are a lower income landowner because you inherited the land? Is that really fair for you? There was also a Lawrence, we're going to call him Gronlund's Corporate Commonwealth. And this was the first book to popularize socialist ideas. They wanted a fair distribution of wealth. Then you get the Protestants and moral reforms. This is actually a pretty fun era of history if you ever look into it more. The Women's Christian Temperance Union. Their campaign for federal legislation outlawing the consumption of alcohol. So for them, they viewed alcohol as the cause of all moral evils in this time period. Prostitution, gambling, birth control, oh my gosh, and polygamy were all the behaviors that these moral reformers fought. And they all brought it back to all these things are happening because of alcohol. And in a sense, they were kind of right. But not all of these things were actually due to over drinking. Another incident that's taking place is in May of 1886, and it was known as the Haymarket Affair. Some 350,000 workers in cities across the country demonstrated or picketed or what have you for an 8-hour workday. Now, I don't know about you. For me, an 8-hour workday is enough. My brain does shut off after 8 hours, and I get a little bit cranky and stuff. But before this, there was no limit to how long they could require you to work. So I know my older sister, she can rock a 12-hour workday, no problem. That's just, she's got that energy. Me, not so much. So before that, you didn't have a choice in how many hours you worked. You want to keep your job, you stay and work all the hours I tell you to. Well, a riot ensued after a bomb killed a policeman on May 4th. And employers took the opportunity to paint the labor movement as dangerous and un-American. Why are they not for the 8-hour workday? Well, that means they can't make as much product and then not make as much profit. And you have to hire more workers to cover a longer workday. So it was going to eat into their profits there. So this guy here, Albert Parsons, was the most famous man arrested after the Haymarket riot. And he was hanged on November 11th, 1887. So we're going to look into whether or not we think he was a dangerous man or not. And that's it for today. We will pick up part 3 tomorrow, and be sure to go over all the assignments on Google Classroom, and I will catch you then. So I will say, we'll stop sharing. Have a great day.